You are listening to a short analytical briefing based on FHound's October Brand Intelligence Monthly Report.
Our mission today is to, cut through the noise and deliver the most essential knowledge right to you. For this deep dive, we are tackling the world of fashion, but we're skipping the usual stuff. We're not just going to focus on 5 mega brands. We're going bigger. We're looking at how entire aesthetic territories, these clusters of style, are shifting right under the surface.
That's exactly right. Because, if you're a designer, a strategist, or just anyone watching the market, knowing that one huge brand had a good quarter, it tells you very little. It doesn't tell you where the cultural currents are actually flowing. Most analysis is it's too narrow.
So if you run a niche label, or maybe a mid-sized brand, you need something more.
You need meaningful insights based on your style territory. And what we're doing here is giving you a shortcut to understanding that whole ecosystem.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have the October 2025 deep dive from FHound Monthly and their insights. They're built on a really sophisticated methodology. For you listening, what's the core mechanism here? How does FHound group hundreds of brands into these, 10 neat aesthetic clusters?
Well, what's so fascinating here is how they move beyond, simple human categorization.
Right, so it's not just someone deciding this is luxury and this is sportswear.
Exactly. Instead of just putting brands in those buckets, they use AI-derived. They call them brand embeddings. Think of it like this. The AI analyzes thousands of data points, and it mathematically plots brands based on how close they are aesthetically.
So it's not grouping them by the size of the company, but by how the consumer feels about them.
Using the same descriptive language? Well, the AI places them close together.
Even if one is high luxury and one is, say, mid-market.
That's the key. And it gives us these 10 coherent clusters. We're using Google Trends as the proxy to track that consumer search behavior to measure cultural relevance globally.
That makes the data feel much more predictive than just tracking sales numbers.
It is.
We're measuring what people want to learn about or what they intend to buy, not just what they bought last week.
Exactly. And that data is presented across two crucial dimensions. First, you have visibility, which is the current level of attention. They call it the popularity index. That shows you the scale. And second, there's momentum. And that's the direction and the strength of the month-over-month change.
So our mission today is to explore both the structural leaders and then where consumers are rapidly pivoting their interest. Let's jump into Exhibit 1 then, the cluster baseline snapshot. This maps the absolute level of cultural attention.
Yeah.
So if we're looking for the undisputed structural leader in the fashion landscape right now, who's commanding the most consumer search volume?
It's not even close. It's unequivocally the Performance Street active cluster.
Not even close. What's the number?
It's sitting at an index of 131.6.
131.6. Okay, just to put that in perspective for you, the next closest cluster is less than a third of that size.
Okay.
That is an enormous gap.
It is. It's a structural anomaly, really. Its scale is so far above all the others, and that reflects its entrenched importance. This cluster, it's home to giants like Nike, Adidas, but also increasingly technical brands like the North Face and Salomon. It's become the default uniform for so much of the world.
It seems like it's just a permanent shift now.
I think so. It's the result of consumers incorporating outdoor apparel, hybrid training gear, and that comfort-driven aesthetic into their daily, year-round wardrobes.
Yeah, when I look around, whether I'm in a city or a park, that statistic just rings true. People are wearing performance sneakers and technical jackets to, just run errands, not for training.
It's the functional anchor of the market, and that's why its baseline visibility is so incredibly high. Now, below this Goliath, we find a strong, durable second tier. It's sitting far below the leader, but it's commanding really steady engagement.
And what are those key second-tier players, the ones that remain so culturally significant?
You have denim and casual essentials at 46.0. Now, the report notes that despite entering its typical seasonal plateau in October, demand is still really robust.
So still strong.
Structurally strong. And then, acting as this crucial aspirational anchor, you have the iconic luxury core at 40.0.
40 points. So that's the heritage houses, Chanel, Dior, Gucci, Prada. What is it that gives them such a sustained hold on our attention?
Well, this cluster, it maintains one of the highest levels of absolute attention because it's driven by emblematic silhouettes, signature materials, and really crucially, global visibility.
They're the benchmark.
They're the benchmark for aspiration, for traditional craftsmanship. And they maintain that relevance, regardless of minor economic shifts.
Okay, so moving down the chart, we hit what looks like a resilient mid-market core a trio of clusters, all packed tightly around the 8 to 9 point index range. This feels like the consumer's default zone for like elevated everyday dressing.
This is the stable middle ground. Exactly. We have modern luxury footwear and accessories at 9.1,
Okay.
feminine power and timeless chic at 8.4, and quiet luxury and smart casual at 8.2. And just to give you a better sense of what these feel like, modern luxury footwear that often covers sneakers and accessories just a step below high luxury. Quiet luxury is all about refined essentials, minimalism.
And what about that feminine power and timeless chic cluster, the one at 8.4? What's the aesthetic essence there today? I mean, is it all 80s suiting?
Not at all. Today, it's much more about structured dresses, sharp suiting, really powerful, tailored essentials designed for the modern professional.
It's quality and versatility.
It's quality, versatility, and a sort of recognizable polish that speaks to confidence, not fleeting trends. So, collectively, these three clusters represent the consumer trying to balance all of that.
Right. And finally, we get to the smaller, more niche territories, where the index numbers drop way down. We see minimal and architectural at just 1.0. Playful contemporary is at 1.8. But the avant-garde collective, even with its smaller scale at 6.0, seems to have this outsized impact on the conversation.
It does, and this is a really key insight from the report. Even at that lower level of visibility, the avant-garde collective, think of boundary-pushing brands like Maison Margiela or Alexander McQueen. It functions as what they call a stylistic laboratory.
A stylistic laboratory, what does that actually look like in practice? How does that style, filter down?
It means that while they don't carry the volume, they're the ones responsible for introducing the directional aesthetics. So, for example, severe minimalism or extreme texture play or certain deconstructed looks, they start in the avant-garde. Then they get refined in that mid-market core.
And then eventually they become mainstream trends that you see everywhere.
Exactly. Their influence on what's relevant in the future far outweighs their current sales volume.
That structural map is essential. But scale is one thing, it's stability. What we're really here to explore is volatility. So let's pivot hard to section 2, momentum. The month-over-month change. This tells us where consumers are actively moving their search interest, where the energy is building.
And we saw some really meaningful divergence here. The overall theme is a clear directional pivot. Consumers are basically signaling they're done with the summer cycles. They are actively searching for elevated, refined aesthetics for the cooler months.
And what stands out immediately is that the number one gainer, the one with the strongest month-over-month performance, was that tiny cluster we just mentioned, minimal and architectural.
Up a highly significant plus 10.3%.
Wow.
Yeah. And this reflects a heightened, really specific demand for precision tailoring and sculptural silhouettes, aesthetics that demand clarity and modern structure. We're talking about the appeal of brands like Rick Owens or Ann Demille-Meester, that emphasis on dramatic, structured shapes perfect for fall layering.
Wait a second. A 10.3% jump in a cluster that started at an index of 1.0.
Yeah.
That feels statistically huge. What does that tell us about its predictive power?
It tells us that while the absolute volume is low, the rate of increase shows that the directional consumer is moving extremely quickly into this territory.
So it's a signal.
It's a huge momentum signal, an emerging aesthetic relevance that you just can't ignore. And right behind it, showing that same pivot toward refinement, was the quiet luxury and smart casual cluster.
Up nearly as much.
Up plus 9.6%. And this gain signals that renewed interest in refined essentials, transitional layering, and craftsmanship that just reads as polished, without overt logos. This is the consumer investing in true wardrobe infrastructure. It's your Loro Piana or Burberry styles that prioritize longevity and subtle status.
So the top two clusters for momentum are both about this elevated, sophisticated, non-logo design. That seems like a pretty clear message for the season. But then you have a fascinating counterpoint here. We also saw a strong third-place gain for a cluster on the completely opposite side of the spectrum, playful contemporary.
Right. That puts it a solid plus 8.1% uplift. And this is important because it prevents the market from feeling completely serious. This cluster, home to brands like Marni or Ganni, it reflects a growing appetite for expressive color, for textural play, and for those seasonal knitwear stories.
So people want refinement, but they also want a dose of personality.
That's it. It's the balance, isn't it? The core wardrobe is serious and structured, but the accents can be bright and experimental.
And looking at the really established market, that massive, iconic luxury core, it remained exceptionally durable. Slipped only a negligible Medica 0.8%.
Which is basically the definition of structural appeal. Denim and feminine power saw some modest softening, -3.3% and -3.9%, which is completely expected. It's just normal month-to-month fluctuation.
Okay, now let's talk about the volatility at the other end. This is section 3, the cool down effect. These are the clusters that kind of ran out of gas after an earlier peak. Which style territories showed the most significant softening in October?
The sharpest drops overall were felt by the most fashion-forward directional clusters. So the Avant-Garde collective had the largest drop at -12.8%.
12.8%.
And right behind it, modern luxury footwear and accessories dropped -11.1%.
That's interesting. You just told us the Avant-Garde Collective is the stylistic laboratory. It sets the trends. So why did it drop the hardest?
Because directional clusters are, by their very nature, high volatility. They run hot, they establish an aesthetic theme, but then the actual consumer attention quickly moves on to where that trend is being adopted and refined.
I see. And the footwear drop.
Well, the drop in modern luxury footwear and accessories likely just represents the peak of warm weather sneaker and statement bag cycles, giving way to search interest in winter apparel.
That makes total sense. But the drop we really need to monitor, given its immense size, is in the structural leader, Performance Street Active. It saw a pronounced softening of -7.1%.
That is crucial. Remember, it's at 131.6 on the popularity index. It's the anchor. But it's shedding attention faster than almost any other stable cluster.
So what does that mean?
Well, while it still commands the most attention overall, a 7.1% drop suggests either a strong seasonal correction, people have bought their trainers and waterproof jackets for now, or maybe the beginning of a subtle long-term rotation away from absolute reliance on performance aesthetics. It's something to watch.
So if we zoom out, what's the clear narrative synthesis for October 2025?
The big picture is that the market decided it was time for cold weather refinement. It recalibrated into early winter, favoring elevated design codes aligned with practical wardrobe building.
So the gains in quiet luxury and minimal and architectural.
Exactly. Over the momentum of earlier cycles like peak performance gear or those modern luxury footwear categories, the consumer is investing in structure and quality for the season ahead.
That brings us to our takeaways. If you're using this data for competitive insights, what are the two main lessons you should walk away with?
Okay, the first is structural, and it's a constant. Performance Street Active remains the uncontested anchor of the fashion landscape. Its scale is gigantic. That influence isn't going anywhere soon.
So the platform is huge, but brands in that space need to manage that volatility.
They do. But the second lesson is about where the strategy needs to focus. The most significant movement in October was towards refined, elevated design. The pivot toward minimal and architectural and quiet luxury tells us that the consumer is prioritizing precision, quality, and a sort of subdued refinement as they build their cooler weather wardrobes.
And this raises a pretty profound question for future strategy, doesn't it?
It really does. Minimal and architectural started the month as the absolute smallest cluster, indexed at 1.0, yet it delivered the strongest momentum signal, rising over 10%. This data shows that these small-scale directional clusters, the stylistic laboratories, can deliver the earliest and strongest signals of emerging demand trends, long before they reach the visibility of the mass market leaders.
It makes you wonder if future success won't be about tracking the giants at all. Maybe it's about tracking the rate of change in those niche laboratories to predict what's coming next. Should brands be tracking momentum in the niche more closely than they track the giants' baselines? That's something worth exploring.
More details from FHound's brand intelligence are available at insights.fhound.me.